Alright guys, I'm back for part two, and um, I have a new cup of coffee, so I gotta, I guess, kind of restart a little bit. Pretty much, we look at the world in front of our eyes, and we notice that there are known factors and unknown factors. There is also shadows, and there's also symmetry, and kind of curvature. So it's like these are the different dimensions of the outer realm that the person requires to consider. In front of your eyes, you have to do something to experience something new. But behind your eyes, you gotta be something to experience something, to be something new. Do you know what I mean? And being is actually that which was there before you were. So anytime the human being's attention goes to how they're being, they're more functioning as an observer of intelligence. The moment where they're looking at how others are, or your attention is not, the moment it steps out of the mode of observance, the moment the person has effort or some sort of movement. So that means, imagine I'm sitting on a chair right now, so I can get up and I see from this chair, from this very current view, with whatever belief or ideology I have, I can get up in different angles, in different ways. So what is happening is that as human beings, our consciousness becomes more sophisticated, the options accessible for us to maneuver and navigate in this plane also increase. So it's kind of hilarious. It's like our minds are becoming more crystallized and advanced. So our suffering is going to be more advanced. That means just because we create advanced technologies, it doesn't mean suffering is gone. It could also cause advanced suffering. But the idea of an advanced civilization is that we're kind of like temporary candles lit for some time, and this light of being requires to get directed. That means it's kind of like wondering, why did I exist if this world was never here? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like the aftermath. It's like you're wondering from a perspective that it's like it's like if there is something that remains and it is not material, what is it? You know, imagine, like, I'm going to create a playful story right now. Imagine, like, the son, the young son of, like, this really great doctor, okay? And the young son says, like, Dad, can you tell me about, like, the anatomy of, like, this, let's say, cat, bird, or something. The father shares. Then the son's like, "Can you tell the anatomy of of my imaginary friend?" And then the father's like, "Whoa, do you know that in some sense, it's kind of like the anatomy of imagination is not multi. Like it's like multiple eyes can't see the thought. They can see the symbol that reflects the thought." So you're hearing these words, but on some level, it's kind of like your attention that transforms everything you hear into some sort of image-based film. So some people could be hearing me right now and they're just seeing the words that I'm saying. And some people could be hearing me right now. They might not even be looking at words. Maybe my voice is just painting a picture for them. Even though I've written as a question the topic, the title, "Are the inner realms an extension of the outer?" Not only the same question could be asked about the outer, is the outer realms an extension of the inner realms? Well, one can also see the inseparability of the options. Kind of like how Albert Einstein said we created time. Time was created so that everything doesn't happen all at once. So that means in your whole life, whatever you identify with, you technically are being a mind that has access to all those options before you do it. So success for the mind is beyond conception. The success for the body is conceivable. For me, I'm being very honest, guys. My relationship with my own intelligence as a human being, as just a being, as just some phenomenon here that's aware it's here. You know, my intelligence with this whole thing changed when I realized the world is alive. And some people are going to be like, "What do you mean, Mr. Within? You mean there's life in this world?" And I'm saying, no, the world is alive. That means man can write poetry, like if you even look at history, man has not just written poetry for like a human being writing poetry for another human being. We have written poetry for the beyond, for the gods, for the abodes beyond the conceivable dualism of the era. There is, you can say, in any moment of history, a sort of unconscious mind of that moment in history. And usually it's the generations afterwards that get to see it. That means right now, all that I know as a being is, in some sense, that the unknown is, and the known does. It's as if every step, every way your attention has moved on this earth has been like a pen authoring realms of meaning. It's as if your memories are written with the pen of your direct experience of life. You know, guys, I'm going to share something that I kind of learned it experientially, but later on I found a psychological article, like a psychology article, kind of explaining it. You know, you see, the human being is a creature. How would I say it? Pretty much, we're all drowning in emptiness in our own inner realms in regards to how we are conceived. So, the more we will feel alive, the more the creature expresses. the less the creature expresses, the world feels more alive. And I find the human being that can find contentment with how the world moves and how they are how they are moving the world and how the world moves them. If you find contentment, somehow your eyes find comfort in both these viewpoints. I feel that your true life finds you. The true life surpasses the desire of the inner realms and the outer realms. The true life of the person is not really the life of the person, it is the presence of life. It's not even the life of the presence. Your presence is standing in this world, rooted beyond the conceptions of the languages that we're using as telescopes for or microscopes for our beliefs. For me right now as I'm speaking, if I entertain the notion that I can say something new, novelty is an extension of the past. That means if you go look at why human beings on this earth were so stoked about revelation, were so shocked and stunned and excited by it, was because revelation is just like news, isn't it? Isn't it? When you turn on the news, isn't new information revealed to you? So you can say the evolution of psychology was to see the psyche, to see what's happening while it's there. I think this is the ultimate motive. It's like our bodies are trying to survive like the fittest animals, but our minds are trying to see the new before they fade, to see what it was all about in some sense. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a figure named Guru Padmasambhava. And Guru Padmasambhava was this enlightened, not a Buddha, a Bodhisattva. That means he's a being who has completed the trials and tribulations of selfhood. That means it's like some creatures, they are alive in this planet to be a creature. Some creatures are alive on this planet because they have realized they're more than a creature. Their work becomes different. Mysticism is like the person gets enlightened when they pull the rug from under their own feet. The candle flame flickers, and to us it appears random, but to the candle flame it is its life happening. That means higher dimensional beings can see us and we could totally be randomity to them. And that means that the language is divine. Language is divinity. The movement of language before the matter moves within the material entity is I find the strange thing. It's the unknown factor. Sorry guys, my attention drifted. I was sharing something, but I feel I missed that train of thought. I don't know, when I close my eyes, when I don't see space, I don't really see time. I see time only when things in space move and change. So technically, if I open my eyes and nothing in the world changed, a portrait is a moment in time. It's an eternity. A picture is an eternal glow of a film. What if behind your eyes it wasn't just nothing? It wasn't just nothing. What if behind your eyes a nameless collective process is occurring? And this nameless collective, this nameless collective, I can't tell you how many moments in this life when I've put down the archetype of the self, I've just returned to the garden of, how can I tell you, like the unconscious. So right now, as I'm speaking to you, it's like these the words I'm saying right now, I'm kind of like observing myself as I'm speaking. Like these words are arising after I respond to the phenomena in my inner realm. So it's kind of like I'm seeing a new picture behind my eyes. I'm responding to it, and then the observation of my own response to the idea, I verbalize, I vocalize. So what I mean by that is the inner realm's activity is like eyes that have no shape. It's like the eyes of shape are shapeless. I there was a time where I thought like this universal sector is so big, like this cosmos is so big, that in the vastness of outer space, there's probably different civilizations that are humanoid, that look like us, that are similar to us. They're individuals and experiencing moments of known and unknown, but they, in some sense, can't know we are here. So I was thinking, like, oh my God, is nature, is the universe playing Texas Hold'em and giving people different cards to giving different civilizations different genetical uh, advanced programs? I feel that here's the thing. It's kind of like how you solve writer's block. In writer's block, the person is blocked is because they don't have a space for the new. That means it's like it just happens. It's kind of like in life. Like what do you do when you get to a dead end? Right? You have to change your view, change your direction, or you will remain at the dead end. And it took us 4 billion years to be able to be conscious of an environment where we could direct ourselves in. It's like we are invisible directors of our own visible lives, you see? That's kind of like the free will. The free will is like an invisible director. It's like the moment you're born, action! Honesty with your inner realms is the only way to tame them. Sometimes a person may think that life is a problem, but sometimes it's not a problem. Sometimes it's like the world is alive and it calls out to people. That means history has a soul. That means it's like when you look at human history and what won and what went forth, it's as if it's occurring to the organizational pattern of a different mind. What does that mean? That means when I look at in front of my eyes at how we're 8 billion human beings on a rock in the middle of nowhere, I notice like different patterns. I don't know, maybe a tiny percentage. Some people hear what I'm saying and new ideas enter the veins of civilization, or in some sense doesn't. Do you know? But what I'm saying is like when I look outside, the 8 billion people, I can't control the condition. I can at most participate in my outer realm or just go and be responsible for it. But in my inner realms, it's as if I could see the same vision of a world with 8 billion human beings on it, but I could also imagine it differently. Do you see what I mean? So, like, I can see an advanced civilization behind my eyes, but in front of it, who knows what decisions will be made? Who knows how the universal sector will write poetry through mankind's decisions? So that's what I'm saying. The inner realms are really where the idea of the freedom from the outer realms is starting. So technically, freedom is trying to be free, which is the paradox and Zen koan like resolution to the egotistical mystical quest. That means it's like if I like when I talk to someone, you'll notice when somebody wants something, guys, be careful of this in life. When someone like imagine someone who on a regular basis they aren't nice to you, suddenly out of no, oh, I'm gonna share you guys an experience I had. Of course, I'm a graduate of Toronto Film School, but there was a point in my life where I found myself in University of Western Ontario, and I didn't have the kind of psychological disposition as I have now, and I remember I was in some sense like in a dorm room. It was called Met Sid Hall. You know, I spent a year in University of Western Ontario, and I can tell you, like in that 1 year, it was there was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of soft kind of sophomore celebration. You know that kind of sophomore. Sorry, not sophomore. Not sophomore. Like frosh excitement. Yeah. You know, like fresh excitement, frosh excitement. And so I had this experience where imagine it's like I don't know if it was a Saturday or Sunday. It's like some weekend night, and it was like 36 doors that were open, and it was this hallway, and of course there was the politics of the whole psychology of the space. You know, it was a kind of what do you call it, co dorm, and I had become close friends with these two people who I had a single room. These two I had like they were roommates in one room. So what happened is that it was like we started drinking. Ole was Ukrainian and Dane was from the Philippines. And so we start. Everybody's drinking. You know, we're kind of like it was a much more bigger, but we're way more people there. And so we're all drinking, and then it's like you know how like the you start as a group, and then the group breaks, and then the group finds itself at some point in the mystery of the intoxication of the night. And so I find myself like I'm a person who personally when I drink like it's I don't I like I've kind of like I never like I don't like drinking, but if I when I do, it kind of makes me want to isolate myself, you know. So sometimes it makes me want to isolate. Sometimes it makes me feel super extroverted and silly and just kind of going forth with the moment. So, anyways, check this out, guys. This is like one of those personal stories I'm sharing. So it's I don't know, maybe it's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I'm kind of like you know a bit intoxicated. You know, I have different senses of buzzes going on. And so at some point, I don't know why, I make this strange decision to just like come back and like I couldn't be, and I kind of had spoken to Dane and Ole, and I'm like, guys, I'm gonna go in the room and chill out, and then I'll see you guys, you know, like, and they were kind of meant to come back, you know. So I was there, kind of like just chilling, and so I remember I'm there and um, playing Immortal Technique on a computer, you know. And guys, Dane and Ole, these guys were like close friends, you know. Now I haven't seen them and spoken to them for a while, but like, anyways. So what happens is I go into the room and I'm just kind of like that intoxication where you're kind of trying to hold your balance, and I'm listening to Immortal Technique, like a rap song from Immortal Technique. Then, guys, these what I would say three incredibly pretty girls, you know, especially at that age and that time when I was, you know, it was like three really, really beautiful girls just come into the room and they start being super nice to me. Do you know what I mean? So like three girls I've never met in my life, all three of them incredibly like, you know, gorgeous, you know, and all three of them are speaking to me and being super nice. And then I get a sense, I realize, okay, there's like, there were like four of them. There were like four random people have just come into Ole and Dane's room where I'm in their room. Okay, and so I'm kind of like the guardian of their room while I'm there. Okay, so when I'm there, I suddenly notice two of them come and talk to me. The other two are just moving around in the room. And that's when I'm like, get out. Not like that. I wasn't intense, but I just noticed like it was artificial niceness. You can notice that from miles away. Do you know? I think so many women think men are, you know, of a lesser intelligence, so they think men don't see their artificialness. But every human being sees each other's artificialness, you know, if they're not acting artificial in the moment, you know. So, anyways, I was like, okay, this is too out of the blue. This kind of niceness and flirtation they have. So I tell them to leave, and eventually I kick them out. But then I realized one of them was like had used a scissor and cut the speakers of Dane and Ole, like they had on the table, right? So I quickly, the moment I catch on, okay, this is too random. It felt like a movie, you know what I mean? So I kind of like tell them they all have to leave the room, but I see it was like the damage was done, and then Dane and Ole come, and I go and find them, and I tell them, like, guys, this happened. It's pretty messed up. They come in and they see like it was like, you know, $60 speakers, but still, it was such an unnecessary thing. Then we realized those girls were from the floor underneath Dane and Ole's room, and Dane and Ole, for some reason, at 6 p.m. would start blasting like dubstep music all around the dorm. So, you know, it was like, but it was a strange thing. And then those girls leave, and later on through the night, I see them, and not in a rude way. I wasn't rude, but I just look at them with like these serious eyes, and I'm like, why did you do it? Do you know what I mean? It's like when you know someone who's kind of guilty, you don't care about, like when you just want to know why they did it. You know what I mean? And it was very intense, you know? It was intense internally, externally it was nothing. It was just like, just people moving. But I'm saying it was at that time with that state of mind where I was intoxicated, my emotions were amplified like unrealistically a little bit to me, you know? So, anyways, it was a situation where the surface was too good to be true. You know, they say it they say it in business sometimes when if the idea is too good to be true, maybe it's too good to be true. You know what I mean? So, and it was. I was kind of like I was kind of happy later on that I had caught on, that I had noticed that it was something uncommon from what I'm usually, usually what happens in human psychology. You know. So, anyways, guys, that's a personal story to kind of relate. You know, chat section tonight is very quiet. Life is strange, guys. It's like you. It's not just all rational. You can't just have an intellectual approach because there is a wilderness to it. That wilderness means that what is superior than kind of the categorization of the intellect is the proximity of awareness of the alertness. So for me, I want every human being to become an advanced communicator and pilot of their attention before the language that defines their attention and limits it, or language can make it limitless. That means those people who believe that they can't die, they had less fear in the moment. You could literally say, if all human beings thought they were eternal beings, it would have perhaps less fear in the civilization. Do you know what I mean? We are always scholars of our own vision. That means you can learn from, let's say, I don't know, a presentation, like from a TED Talk, whatever amount of minutes it is, but you can learn from your eyes all the time. You can see that the light in the stars is moving in the waves of matter. It is in some sense the mind. For me, the mind is like, yo, I can totally respect objective reality. I totally respect the medical sciences. I respect technology. Do you know? I'm one of those people who, in my subconscious, I honor science. But after some point, it's like, it's not about the answers anymore. It is finding the right question. And there is a joy more supreme than any answer when you find the right question. And the right question is like that most accurate vision of the phenomena with the least interruption and turbulence. You know? The human being is strange. It's like you look at the body, you're like, yo, I got all these different organs, and my biological constitution is so differently categorized. Like when you look at the human body, guys, it's fascinating. Do you know? That means it's like if you want to sleep at night and you put your hand on your stomach, for example, and you're sleeping, like that, the weight of your hand, it's like it causes a discomfort because of gravity, the weight of your hand, it's gravitational pull on your stomach. But if you put your hands on your chest, for example, on above your lungs, and you sleep, you see the weight is less, for example. And the best way is not to even have the hands. I think like beds are going to evolve into anti-gravity kind of fields where the person just jumps into the air and like that's their bed. You know what I mean? Like they're just hovering there in the air. Because the bed right now, the bed, it's kind of weird, guys. It's like we are constantly making our backs flat. That means if the skeleton system was like one of those old school antennas of like the old school cars where you had to move with your hand to get signal. You know what I mean? It's like the way the physical style and momentum is really dictates the reception, the quality of the reception. It's like, would you listen better to something you cared about or something you didn't care about? Something you don't care about, because the ears are not like the mouth, like a person's mouth, like they can speak and then they can stop speaking, but a person is 24/7 listening, whether they like it or not. Because the ears have no door. They're not like windows we can shut. There's no ear lids. There's only eyelids. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's like this system where every individual part of the brain is doing its thing, but the whole brain is in motion, is in function. So it's like we constantly see different fragments and chunks of the world working only to realize the whole thing is in function. So guys, that's the I really feel that's the end. That's the end of the talk. Oh, one last thing, interacting with space. So think about it right now. When you look at the human being, you see we've mastered interacting with objects and even certain level with subjects, right? So you see, like you can move an object. Like in front of me right now, this mouse of my computer, I can move it. You know, I can even free a digital mouse. Yeah. I feel cyberspace is going to allow man to climb into God's eyes. The what ifness of full responsibility for existence. That means it's like if it like you know, there's this idea, a strangely very comforting idea in religion. That it's like there is an administrator to the world that is not conceivable to the creatures in the world, but the clues that are given, it's that it's everywhere. Okay? So it's kind of like the person asking the human being, why are you here? You know, and the human being's like, because God created me. And then it's like the person going, the being going and going, the question being asked from God, why did you create, why are you here? You know? And God doesn't say because something else created me. God is the idea of the dynamism, ignition of the dynamism of the creation. That means one thing that the secular view and the non-secular view have in common is that they see an inconceivable edge to the administration. That means I'm pretty sure the moment astrophysicists saw a black hole in space, they were like, ah, fuck. Let me tell you why. Because they realized there is gaps in the observable universe that we will never see. That means imagine there was only one black hole and we had explored everywhere in the whole universe and found the edges of the universe somehow, and it was like this sphere that came to a black hole on the top. Let me tell you a hypothesis I have about black holes. They're donuts. They're not just a black hole. They're actually a donut. We don't see the donut though, we just see the hole. Imagine guys, there's a course in the future, let's say, called Black Hole Studies. And the teacher, in some sense, comes into class and gets a drill or gets, in some sense, like, let's say the teacher comes in with a mine, what do you call it? Like with a prospector mining shovel or whatever you call that, right? And he starts creating this black hole, and the students are like, what is the teacher doing? Is the teacher insane? And the teacher tells all the students to look inside that black hole. And all the students look at the black hole, you know, and the teacher says, what did you learn about black holes today, kids? And the answer, really, the teacher tries looking for is, in some sense, is that it's too dark to see. And that's something cool about both the inner realms and the outer realms. Sometimes it's too dark to see, but it doesn't mean existence is only based on sight. We can say sight, the precondition to sight is the intelligence being there in first place. So we are right now thinking we are acting intelligently as creatures, but actually the intelligence was there before the activity. That's what I'm saying. So, anyways, guys, that's so the interaction would be an interaction with space, and an interaction with space, it means like, all right, we moved around objects, all right, we moved around subjects. Now we're like, all right, now we got to interact with the space. The space that holds all in the vision of the now. You know, it's like a yogi went to, fill out this application and it said address and the yogi wrote here and now. And then the guy at the, let's say, I don't know, application place was like, sir, what do you mean your location address is here and now? We can't mail you anything. And then the guy yogi looks at the person, it's like, you tell me where is everything? And then the guy's like, oh my God, we are all here existing as, or existing can be said to be the glow of how we are being now. I don't know. Life is fascinating. You can see it from multiple angles, but the interaction with space is not conceptual, and because it is not conceptual, it means that it means it's experiential. So it means as you live life, don't just pay attention to the objects and subjects. Pay attention to how they are happening, how they are intersecting, taking formation in the moment. Have this fascination of your own mind that it's like a once in a lifetime painting you get to look at. So anyways, guys, the inner realms and the outer realms, in the diagram that I spoke about in part 1, if those two realms are the same as each other, there is no inner realm, outer realm. If those two are like a Venn diagram, there is an oscillation between the inner realm and the outer realm. And right now, I'm not telling people to go and be like, everybody go in the cave and meditate. It's like, what is that? I'm telling people that everybody go find some sort of inner self-reflection and realize you are not what you have believed, you are what you will experience. We cannot dishonor our free will by just thinking that life is a snapshot when it's all changing. Don't dishonor a changing universe by thinking it only is in one way. Because as the moment the mind realized it can branch out, it accessed infinity. That means duality was the precondition to infinity. So a being that observes duality will feel infinite or immortal, not as a concept, but as a field of witness, a field of witnessing. So it's kind of like you being in a room, and then there's one view where you're aware of the whole room. Then there's certain moments where you're the whole room aware of what's inside. You have to command your own mind's liberation by realizing that if you do not walk towards novelty, you have missed her eyes in your lifetime. That means certain moments, if you don't engage, it is gone. It doesn't mean it won't come back, that kind of moment. It just means you had to be aware where the activity is. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm aware there is a certain external activity and there's an inner activity. For example, when I speak, sometimes when I'm very comfortable, my hands automatically move. So you guys might not be seeing it. You guys just get to hear my voice, but in all these times that I've been speaking, my hand moves sometimes in the sense where it's as if while I'm talking, my hand, I have an image-based vision of the idea, I gave a talk. It's called Talk. It's number 438. Of course, it's in a different language, but this talk is you can totally see my hand movement, at least in this talk. You can see I'm visible in the talk, so you can see. Anyways, do not fear the space where life happens. This space is sacred. That means it's like you're scared, then once you confront the fear, that scared becomes an insight that is sacred. And what is sacred is what must remain at a certain level of your own pure decency as a creature. That means in your inner realms, you can also do things that dishonor you. Do you know what that means? You have to free yourself from how language is coding your expression. And once you can observe your own code, you are no longer the program, you're the programmer. And that state of mind is the advanced human being. That's the vision of Mr. Within Civilization 2.0. That we see how great we could have been while we were, not after. We don't. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like life is so intense. You can walk in certain parts of it feeling it's a playground. You can walk into certain parts of it feeling like it's a battlefield. You can walk in certain moments feeling incredibly ordered, aligned, everything is perfect. And you can walk in certain moments where it's chaos, where the perfection wasn't everlasting, where there is change. And so when I realize my whole life is actually how I am interpreting change, and that state that observes change, it can't be interpreted. The Upanishads say it even, you know? The seer of the seen is unseen. The hearer that is aware of hearing can't be heard. So what that means is, just like how you don't see the roots of the tree, the roots of human intelligence go into the soil of stillness and silence, and they become inconceivable. So therefore, I have called that the language threshold, where we can no longer exist as a concept if we are to experience that dimension. We have to exist as an inseparability of the individual activity with the cosmic activity, so there isn't endless desires of filters. Your desire filters your karma. That means literally two people, I'll tell you, imagine three people sitting in a room, they bring some sort of ultimate healthy cake. Okay? And so the people in the room, your desire dictates your karma. The person who has intense desire instantly grabs the cake. And then suddenly, the person who doesn't have desire just watches the other person grabbing the cake. And let's say there's someone who, after he saw the first person grab the cake, he also grabs a little bit too. And then you see suddenly someone comes in the room and says, "Yo, this was some person's wedding cake. Why are you guys eating from it?" Right? And you see the person who didn't have desire had a different karmic destiny in that situation. Different karmic output. You see what I mean? That's why I termed it that we, as in the individuality, is consciousness in the linguistic simulation. Right now, I am existing to you as a character in the story of this common world where we're all in. Right? Do you see what I mean? But these characteristics, these visions, they're not just ever changing, they are also pilotable. You can pilot, not just like how you can move in your outer realms, you can also move in your inner realms, or you can even realize you are the observer of your inner realms. At that point, there's no inner outer anymore. You're just your whole moment of being content with how it's being. That means there's something strange. I'll tell you the story from Hafez, the Sufi mystic. Hafez, in one of his poetry, there was this incredibly enlightened guy, poet, a Sufi dervish by the name of Attar. Hafez, in his poetry, he says, one day I feel I'm ready and I go to Attar and to ask to be his disciple. And Hafez was like a next level poet himself, but Attar was like next level aware. Like if they were phones, Attar was getting way more signal than Hafez. But Hafiz was getting way more signal than everybody else, and then Rumi and Hafiz, I would say similar signal, Attar higher signal. So anyways, Hafiz goes to Attar's house, knocks and says, "Attar, I'm ready to be a disciple of yours and to receive your teachings about the unknown and whatnot." Attar looks at him and says, "You're not ready, kid." You know, Attar says you're not ready. Hafiz gets so offended by this that he just leaves, and in his poem he writes, he goes into like a wasteland, a desert. He draws a circle, he sits inside that circle, and he in some sense sits there so long so that all his desires leave. And so in his story, he says, I sat in that circle, I don't know, what was it, 40 days or something? He sat into this kind of meditative state to let his desires melt away, evaporate away. And he says, after, like, I think the 40th day or something, he says an angel came to him and he had lost all his desires. He lost all his desires. He's sitting in this circle in this desert, and an angel comes to him and says, Hafiz, you have elevated to a divine level. Heaven is telling you you can have anything you want. What do you want? And Hafez doesn't respond. He is silent, as if he has truly reached a point where his desires don't are not in the driver's seat of his true being. And Hafez is silent. He says nothing. In some sense, a response of its own is silence. And the angel leaves, and Hafez just stands up and he's smiling. He's smiling because he has realized he is free. He was free before he was enslaved. And he walks to Attar's door. Attar somehow intuitively already knows he's coming, and Attar sees Hafez and says, "You're ready." He says, "You noticed it." It's not even about intellectual reasoning. It's about noticing the living movements of your world as you're part of it. You know, so it's like this concept that the world had a soul, had a life. You know, ancient Greeks called it Gaia. You know, Terence McKenna, the scholar, spoke about the Gaian mind. So what is that? That is literally how the world is alive, but we can only see it alive when we are alive. And I'm not saying only, it's just like right now we're experiencing life like caterpillars, two-dimensional experience. But the moment we go through a metamorphosis, then it becomes three-dimensional. Three-dimensional. That means you don't just burst out of your memories, and that's why some people have thought it's like a rewind when the person passes away. But it's like, I feel it's just at the end of all ends, you are left with how you simply began. You see what I mean? That's the strange power on its own. How you are before the world was consumed by having to do something endlessly. So anyways, guys, that's the end of the talk. I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Pretty much for the next 10 minutes, I'm just going to be quiet, and if anybody has a question, you can write and share, and I'll share my feedback. As just, you know, keep in mind, I'm just one guy in a universe of a billion trillion stars. Like, that's, you know, we all have our own eyes, but at the same time, we integratively live within each other's sight. You know, that means all the shows I saw in my life as a kid, it was as if like it was literally like somebody else's imagination had become my reality. When you see a film, that's one director's vision, you know, one writer's imagination. You know, like the writer is the soul of the film, the director is the mind of the film, and in some sense, the actor is the body of the film. I would say it like this. And these three positions, if in the film industry, they become prioritized, the people will see incredible narratives and stories arising, you know? So anyways, guys, Q&A, it's Q&A. Anybody has a question, ask. If not, after like 10 minutes, I'm probably going to end it and end the talk. So feel comfortable. Much blessings, and Q&A has begun. Okay. Thanks everybody for listening and tuning in. I'm going to give some updates where I think I may take the channel. Right, this channel is going to continue, but I'm probably going to start a channel where, uh, I mean, I'm still thinking of its battle plans, but it's like, I think I should start a channel where people can see me kind of like with paper or something. So anyways, like I don't know, there's some intent. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and namaste.